Thanks for joining me for this topic. If you've been following my summer, you know that I've been taking advantage of the situation we're in to just kind of answer questions that have been on my mind for some time. So we tried to solve some Venmo riddles a few weeks ago. We had what I called an emergency Zoom chat 2 weeks ago to talk about what all of you are doing with direct mail in the face of the Postal Service and its challenges and the volume of ballots now being sent and those challenges. And that's not even considering partisan facets to the election coming up. So that was a good chat too. And all of those Zoom meetings, I will get online sooner or later. I know the Venmo one is up. I think the direct mail one is up. And so if you couldn't join us for one of those or any of the other ones we've done this summer, please go looking for it because I think they've all been good conversations. Okay, I'm letting a few more people in. Let me find the chat and just confirm. We hear you. Thank you very much, Christina. This is probably there's a lot of good content to talk about in the next hour or so, but this may be one of the least organized PowerPoints I put together, but we're gonna just sort of wade in and talk about different elements of QR codes. Every time I do this, I get a little smarter, I think. I actually had the presence to ask people when they were registering any questions that you want to ask as part of this chat, and got some good questions in response. So we'll even get to some of those. Remember the functionality of the chat. I will try and keep one eye on it. Post your questions there. If you have answers to any questions, by all means, post those there too. I've got several friends that I'm going to bring into the chat that have been forewarned about this, Tim being one, but do not let them limit the conversation. Everybody is welcome to chime in if you've got a QR code use that you're proud of or otherwise have some knowledge about QR codes that I don't, which won't be difficult to surpass. Feel free to speak up and raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll just try and get as much information as we can in this next hour, okay? And then the only other MO that I usually have is that I try and set a little bit of context about what I think I know about the topic that we're talking about. And then in general, I just try to shut up and bring in other folks who are actually putting some of these things into practice or otherwise know more about the subject than me. And so that's worked out well. And if this is your first time catching this act, welcome. People don't always come back, so it's good to have you once anyway. If you did come back, mercifully, thank you, and hope you find this as useful as hopefully you found some of the other things we've talked about. I don't usually have commercials as part of this hour, but there is one I want to get on your radar screen. As if John Taylor and I haven't learned enough lessons trying to do online Zoom conferences that were supposed to be in-person conferences this year. Believe it or not, we've got one more coming up this year for our neglected friends in the Pacific Northwest. If you've not heard the initials PNW before because you're from parts south or parts east, PNW is the Pacific Northwest, and it turns out they've got a lot of smart annual giving and advancement services folk up there. And so November 4th through the 6th, if those dates ring a bell, it's because we may still be counting ballots those days, and who knows how much longer beyond that. But if you're looking to kill some time the rest of that week, feel free to join us. The same pricing applies to other things that we've put on this year. Nobody's trying to get rich. If you register for $195 for your institution, anybody on your team is more than welcome to join us. And we've gotten great feedback. It's been great involving so many voices of people who know what they're doing in our work. And it's about time the Pacific Northwest be heard, right? So if you've been to some of our other ones, this is all new content. If you want some love and some therapy for being a fundraiser, we feel you. And so come and join us. I think if nothing else, we have a lot of fun, and you're all welcome to join in. It seemed appropriate to have a QR code linking to the conference website. So if you want more information about the speakers and the sessions, it's all there. But So I'm not even going to promote anymore. Go look it up yourself, and hope you make some plans to join us. Okay. Oh, I forgot to show John. John, look what I did. I covered up your face. That's me in the upper left. That's John in the lower right.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bob. Thanks a lot.
Look what I can do, John. Boop. Yep, there you go. Scan John's face and learn more about the conference. Okay, John, back on mute now. Not just last night was I watching my beloved Cleveland Indians play baseball, a game they blew, by the way. Their bullpen was lousy. If you're from Cleveland, don't get me started. But there you go. Right on my TV screen is a QR code for the Ohio Lottery, which my resolution was so bad on my computer screen, I couldn't even get it to scan. But this is where we've arrived, I think, with QR codes, that they are increasingly just becoming a part of society for a variety of reasons that I'm going to talk about next. But you know, QR codes have been around 10 years now, and I thought at the time they were going to be this silver bullet for fundraising, right? Sort of like texting, sort of like other things we've seen come and go. And in the same way that texting has kind of had a renaissance, I think there's been a confluence of factors that have made it worth your while to think about QR codes in what we do in fundraising. And if I turn on a ball game now and there's a QR code, that's a pretty good indication to me that we ought to pay attention to this. You know, 11 years ago, I think there was probably some concern putting QR codes in our mailings and things because a big part of the population didn't know what on earth they were. And there was probably a little bit of concern that they were going to feel like they were missing something that was cool. And I don't know what you're talking about with that. You know, in the past 11 years, I think that has diminished as a concern. And I think quite the opposite now. I think people are more and more in the minority if they're not familiar with the QR code. And yet I got questions in advance about what is a QR code. So that little Google, or whatever you want to call it, is something that is scannable by a smartphone in particular. And there's a lot of data that you can embed in that code. When QR codes first showed up in fundraising, it tended to just rush people to your online giving page. But I have now seen a lot more functionality, both internally, you know, with gift processing, as well as externally, both in general links to websites, but also with person-specific data in websites. And so we'll look at a couple of different examples that touch all those things as we go today. But this slide is just to remind me to make the point that they're not as foreign a thing as they were once upon a time when they first showed up. Back when I was a boy thinking about QR codes 11 years ago, you had to get a reader on your smartphone. It was literally your choice of what app do you download that will enable you to read a QR code. So not only did we have to hope that people knew what a QR code was, they also had to already have figured out how to download something onto their phone that would allow them to read your QR code. All of these things you're looking at on this slide have been rendered kind of obsolete recently, because now if you've got updated iPhones or whatever, the QR code reader is built right into the camera. So you've probably already seen this. If you're trying to take a picture of something that happens to have a QR code in it, it will assume you're trying to read that QR code and will ask you if you want to bring that up on your smartphone screen. So that's factor number two for me. One, that people tend to know more about what a QR code is these days, and you're less at risk of their feeling like they're missing something. Two, the QR code is now, the reader is now embedded into the phone, which eliminates one whole layer of complexity to even thinking about using a QR code. Then there's just the fact that it's popped up in society, and because we're all becoming a little more germophobic these days. If you didn't know, the Asians are running circles around us with this idea. So this picture of the rack of umbrellas is in Singapore, where I was just a year ago. And remember, they've already fought through the bird flu virus and SARS and all that stuff. And they've got a heightened awareness to just giving people the comfort of doing things in a touchless kind of a way. So this is a rack of umbrellas you can literally rent just with your smartphone. You scan the code to download the app, but then once you have the app on your phone, you can see where umbrellas are in proximity to where you're standing in the rain in Singapore. And so much of the lifestyle over there has become QR code centric. You know, much like face masks, they've been more courteous to their friends walking around with face masks if they've got some kind of virus or if they don't want to get other people infected with something. The education that we're going through more or less now, they've already been there and done that with all this stuff. And so that's how you rent an umbrella. When I was in Singapore, you go to one of the hawker centers where they've got the best food in town. You stand in line to get duck at this one stall, and there on the right, you can pay your check with a QR code. Don't have to touch anybody or anything. And it's all just very integrated with all of those different payment windows that you see down at the bottom of that page. So that's one type of use of the QR code in location-specific kinds of ways that we'll talk about. But just so you know, I think our friends in Asia have lapped us in a way with their embracing of the QR code. And in some ways, it was all because of the touchless idea that has caused them to run up ahead of us. Oh, there's the duck line I was in, worth the price and worth the wait, let me tell you. Okay, also not helpful 11 years ago is how if you figured out how to program a QR code with your giving page wasn't necessarily formatted for a smartphone. And so a lot of us were proud of ourselves that we connected all the dots with having a QR code that linked to our giving page, only for it to be a microscopic giving page. And fast forward now 11 years since, and we've got mobile friendly and responsive design and all those things that have now made the functionality of a giving page on a smartphone device much better than it used to be. It was like falling down on the goal line with the football, right? That you had solved every other riddle about how to get a QR code into your appeals, only to have your giving page be not very helpful in the whole process. So that's by and large gone away too. Some of you may still be fighting that fight with your web finance service provider, but time is on your side. This is shifted. Here's a restaurant in Chicago I walked past just the other day. They have gotten rid of paper menus and open up outdoor patios, at least for the next week or so. And so again, the heightened sensitivity to being a touchless society. We're not going to give you a menu that somebody else just touched at your table. But if you scan the menu with your QR code, you'll see everything that there is to order, and we'll bring it right out to you. You wouldn't have seen this not that long ago in Chicago or anywhere else, but that's kind of the trajectory that we're on, with just being more respectful of people and their cleanliness and their comfort, and what does that mean for our businesses, and how do QR codes impact what we're trying to do. PayPal has jumped in promoting PayPal and QR codes as a touch-free payment option. QR code means you don't have to handle cash, credit cards, or remember a PIN, and it's easy. Just follow the steps below. I went in to PayPal, and it turns out that is my personal code. If anybody listening in wants to pay Bob Burdenski via PayPal or Venmo, there's your opportunity. No payment is required or deserved for this session, but I can set this up, and you could all use, create a QR code that connects with one of these apps. So if I scan the PayPal code, if I've got PayPal as an app, on my phone, it will open that right up and pre-populate with your PayPal account. The same with Venmo. That brings us back to the Venmo discussion we had about a month ago about how do you use Venmo institutionally. But just so you know, a lot of these quick pay services now will let you create a QR code for your organization. And as we'll talk a little bit later, in location-specific ways, or even if you want to put this in a direct mail letter, and if people are partial to just opening up their phone and making a payment right then and there via PayPal or Venmo, not a bad idea. I don't have any samples of that, but intuitively it makes sense to me that that's where this could all go. And I know we're not really in location-specific mode with a lot of our reunions and tents and events these days, but it's also easy to imagine once we get back there, you know, having QR codes around the tent or on T-shirts, to go to somebody's question with the staff, that allow people to make a gift right then and there just by scanning that code. Depending what kind of a betting person you are, how many people in your audience have PayPal on their smartphone or have Venmo on their smartphone? I think it's an increasing number. And if you didn't know, PayPal owns Venmo anyway, And so how long before all these things just kind of get consolidated in one efficient way? But just so you know, cashless payments, location-specific ways to do it, and all payments to Bob are most welcome. Okay, I want to bring in my friend Tim Hallinan. And Tim, I chuckled when I saw this letter was dated 2011. I can't believe it's been that long ago. But I want to tell this story, and let me set this up a bit with some context. Back at the time, the only use of QR codes I had seen was really to rush people to your giving page. Tim at Western Illinois was the first example I ever saw of somebody using a QR code for something other than just rushing you to a giving page. And Tim, I'll let you tell your version of this story, but let me start and you can fill in all the gaps. This is a letter from a fine arts student, this guy, Chris, I think, who's a trumpet player or cornet player, asking you to support him and other School of Music students at Western Illinois with the gift to the annual fund. And down there at the bottom lower left-hand corner, I think I've enlarged, is a little header down there that says, scan the code and enjoy your own personal concert performance from Chris. And Tim, I didn't load up the entire video because sometimes people can see those and sometimes they can't, but I did do some pictures here. If you scan that code, up comes this introduction that says, Chris welcomes you back to the College of Fine Arts recital hall. Oops. Then there he is playing you your own concert as part of the video. Then he asks you one more time to help with a gift to support scholarships at the School of Music. And then last but not least, there's the good old link to the giving page itself.
Recital Hall on Macomb campus of Western Illinois University. I'm Chris. I want to personally thank you for considering a gift to the School of Music. Annual gifts from former students like you are so important to current students like me, and I hope you will join others who are lending their support this year. You may choose to benefit any or all of the department scholarships, or contribute to the Alumni Band Fund, Jazz Band Fund, or let the School of Music direct your gift where it is most needed. Gifts of all sizes are both needed and appreciated by the department and students like me, but it's your participation that will also make this year's campaign a success. Your generosity is certainly music to my ears.
You know, 11 years ago, you were ahead of your time, my friend, because I thought this was a really smart multi-channel kind of connector with the good old paper letter and a video that really, I think, added a very personal touch to the whole thing. Now, I give all that build-up hopeful that you don't regret this idea and hopeful that you must be doing some variation of it today because your time has come. But tell everybody this story.
No, hey everybody. Yeah, this was 9 years ago, and when I first got to Western Illinois University, we found that the direct mail outreach it wasn't really student focused. So we started actually focusing on students and those that benefit from alumni giving. And we're about 4 years in, and a lot of what we were doing, and everybody I would imagine, is you hear a lot, you want to bring the donor back to campus. You hear it mostly in phone-a-thon scripts. You play on the nostalgia and you ask them about their favorite places on campus. So we're brainstorming on this end. I can't remember exactly how we came across QR codes, but we thought, what better way to bring an alum back to campus than to show them. And certainly we could do that through email and YouTube links and all of that, but QR codes seem to be becoming more and more popular at the time. So we put some thought to it, and we're mailing to music students, and every music student that had graduated from our university, they know what it's like to stand right there on that stage and look out over those seats to do their performances. So we brought in Chris, and Chris graciously agreed to not only be featured in the letter, but to do a performance also. So that's the view. So we were hopeful that our alums would scan that, see that view, and immediately come back to campus, so to speak. So we did replicate this with our other areas within our College of Fine Arts and Communication, like our theater and dance majors. They perform on a different stage where we had a theater student speaking from that theater, and it was really funny. We were doing that video, and behind the student, the guy comes out and he's sweeping the stage, and that was unscripted, but still we left that in. It's just so perfect. But we got a lot of great feedback. We didn't really have the technology to know if those video views were translating into more dollars. In fact, the returns on that piece, I'd like to say, yeah, we got a 20% return and we doubled our income. It's not the case, but we do know that people did view the video. It was a talking point for our phone-a-thon students when they called to follow up on the letter as well. And like I said, we replicated that with other familiar areas on campus, and we got a lot of good feedback. We really did. Unfortunately, we could only do this about 2 years, and then it is a bit labor intensive to do the videos, go on campus, different places, produce the letters on top of that. We don't have a huge annual giving team here, even today, so we kind of moved away from it because we didn't really see the returns on that. Now, we are looking to revisit, and that's kind of my reason for attending here today also, is that we have that complementary technology now. Whereas if you see, in the video, the best we could do in terms of converting that viewer to a donor is just putting up what was our giving site at the time, which admittedly was not at all mobile friendly. So there's a lot of donor friction there where they would have to go in and type they couldn't click on the video. They had to type it in and go and make their gift on a not very mobile friendly site. But now oh, go ahead.
As I've written books over the years for CASE called Innovations in Annual Giving, right? I gave up trying to find the ideas that had everything solved from beginning to middle to end, right? It didn't mean that your idea was bad just because nobody had really come up with the data tools to measure, just how many people were watching the thing. What I want to talk about a little bit later is some of the data tools that are now out there, right, so that you can keep track of exactly how many people click on a video like that. But, intuitively, it was just so smart to take one method of message delivery, a direct mail piece, but then also kind of open a window to a whole other set of information and really put an additional human touch on it that, so much of us are searching for. I mean, now we're doing personal videos, but this was 9 years ago that you were giving somebody a human touch. Am I right at all? Did you pick up any feedback of what is that squiggly thing on the bottom of the letter? I have no idea. What do I do with that? What am I supposed to be seeing?
A bit. When we demoed it with, mostly our upper leadership at the time, they didn't see the point in it really. But like I said, we also demoed it with our phone-a-thon students. We say, hey, would you respond to something like this? And they're like, oh yeah. We had students at the time. They'd actually have QR codes printed on maybe a T-shirt. You'd scan that, and it would take them to their social media. That's kind of a thing around here for a while. So yeah, but then once it caught on, there was discussions. Well, maybe we should put it on a billboard. Maybe we should. Like, no, can't imagine driving by.
How many wrecks can you cause? Yeah.
But we did see the potential in it, so we did keep it going for a few years. But we did have to go away from it. But I think it's time we revisit it for sure.
Well, I hope you don't lose faith, because somebody had to go in first, and as far as I'm concerned, that was you 9 years ago, and maybe finally the rest of us have caught up with you. But I thought it was a good idea then. I think it's a great idea now. In fact, I can imagine somebody not just linking to a video of Chris, but a video of Chris saying, "Thank you, Bob, for your gift to Western Illinois." So I hope you get some satisfaction from that. Thank you for retelling that story. I had this letter in my PowerPoint presentations for years. Tim has probably been harassed dozens of times over the years from people who just happened to catch me talking about Western Illinois and followed up with him and not me. So apologies for that, but hope you appreciate my beating the drum for you there. Okay, let's look at some others that have come along since then. I think when I was promoting today's get-together, and by the way, if you actually saw the video of me in the QR code inviting you to join me, say a word in the chat, and then if you actually figured out how to scan the QR code at the end of the video to go to the RSVP page, you get the gold star, because it's very hard to figure out how to scan a QR code in a photo. But it can be done, which I think I have a slide to talk about, or if not, I'll just bring it up closer to the end. But here's another example to talk about. This is the Chinese International School in Hong Kong. This is a stewardship mailing that they send out, so I can't read exactly what this says in appreciation of your gift. But notice the QR code, and remember the Asian sort of orientation to all things QR codes. So if you scan that QR, up comes their impact report in an infographic style. Again, something that they don't necessarily have to squeeze into a mailing to everybody, but allows them, there was probably an email that got sent out with the impact report. It lets them repurpose, a lot of that content and let people sort of cross-pollinate from the paper mailing to the email they get, and vice versa, and otherwise get all that stewardship content they want people to have, even if they don't deliver it all in the same channel at the same time. So Lynn Wester would be proud that people are using QR codes now to improve their donor stewardship and improve their donor retention. So there's one idea there for you to think about. Here's my friends at Babson College. This is a recent appeal they did for student emergency fundraising. And I think I've got this one on here. Yeah, if you click on this, this links you to their now mobile-friendly giving page there on the right. I think this is a Give Campus mobile-friendly giving site. Again, go back to my point about how when we started trying to use QR codes, it took people to our microscopic online giving pages. So fast forward 9 years, and now you've got the right connection of the QR code taking you to the giving page, and the giving page being formatted in a smartphone friendly kind of a way. So there's a Babson example if you want to see how that dovetails with Make Your Gift Right Now. And this is a very recent appeal that they did with Give Campus all around student emergency fundraising. This is Campbell University, similar thing, this linked to their Giving Day page, but again, is real presumptive. This is a pretty big honking QR code on their Giving Day postcard. And so Gone would seem to be the days of what is that, and I don't know what that is, and what am I missing, and how do I even read that thing? Now it's become sort of a standard staple on a paper mailing to invite people to go directly to the Giving Day site and see the challenges and see how much money has come in so far today and see who else has given and all that stuff. And I'm going to talk to Christina Nichols in a little bit from MCR, but I'm going to guess that she's going to say that this is a really effective way to rope direct mail into what tends to be a very social media centric giving day. And that's okay with me. Direct mail is going to be a recurring theme the rest of this hour. You can put QR codes in emails, you can put them in videos, you can put them in all kinds of digital stuff. But to me, the real connector is with a direct mail postcard or other direct mail piece, and using it to introduce people into some of your web-based content. And we'll see if some of my other friends agree with me when we bring them in. Here's my friends at Purdue. This again just is a brand new example and isn't anything more than rushing you right to their online giving page. Try something new, scan this with a smartphone to give online. I don't think there's person-specific data in that QR code, but I might be wrong. I don't have anybody from Purdue on the line. I think they're still treating this like it's a victory just if we can use a QR code to get people to come to the giving page. But that's how Purdue is using it at the moment. Then there's my friends at UIC, and Brianna Cvec, my good Czech friend and my good Chicago friend, is joining us to talk about this example. Brianna, can you hear me? Are you there? Hi.
I am here.
Good. Thanks for doing this. I just went through all the samples I've gotten over the last year and found ones that had QR codes and essentially drafted these institutions because I thought they were doing something cool with a QR code. So Brianna is here because I decided that this was a cool thing to talk about, and she agreed to talk about it. My local friend in Chicago. So Brianna, you're another variation for how to use a QR code, in that in these mailings that you guys send out, there's embedded in the QR code person-specific information for everybody who receives a mailing. So it's not take me to your generic giving page, it's not show me your generic video. You've loaded up each of these QR codes with information specific to that prospect. What a lot of people don't know is just how much information you can cram into a QR code. So once you've successfully gotten the gold star for sending people to your giving page, you're not done. You then need to figure out how you can do person-specific data.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about how that whole process works. So I gave Brianna a whole interrogation, and can you talk in terms that I can understand about how this works and how you work with third parties to fold this into your mailings?
Yeah.
And thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. QR codes are very exciting. I think we all love them.
Everybody in this talk anyway.
So UIC, we use our QR codes for direct mail and telemarketing. I specifically kind of manage the direct mail aspect. For the QR code itself, our vendors set it up. We send the data over, and what they do is they on the barcode there, they kind of just take that barcode, mail merge it, and then that's how they set up the QR code. What that is literally all of the data that we send, that's the QR code. So that data for the constituents, name, address, city, state, all the funds, everything that we're sending them, that literally lives within the QR code. So then once that QR code is set up, I send it over to gift processing to make sure that it's actually accurate and that it scans properly. Gift processing uses OnBase, so that connects with TED, our Blackbaud system, and then they scan, like if someone makes a gift, they scan it, upload it to the record, and then I could see the QR code, the date it was scanned, the receipt, and then their check. So it's all kind of tied into one. And then, yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of the gist of it. I'm kind of going between the vendors and gift processing I kind of have the easy job. I feel like gift processing has the tough job. So
Yeah. And so you're not asking the recipient to do anything with that QR code. That's strictly just for your gift processing folks to make sure they've got the right person and all the other details, and it populates on the gift entry screen. So it's just it's sort of a shortcut for, and sort of an integrity security thing, right? Just that we've got the right person making a gift.
Yeah, it's for streamlining the gift processing process, making sure data is accurate in the system, and making sure that if it's on the household record, both of members of the household get accountable, or they're accountable for their gift. So it's not just making things easier, it's kind of just making sure the data is accurate in the end.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And Brianna even sent me over some pictures of the coding that they use. It's not as complicated as it would have been 9 years ago, right, Tim, to even think about this. And I've seen people use these barcodes to populate somebody's unpaid phone-a-thon pledge amount, and other data that's specific to an individual that can either be used to pre-populate an online giving screen if people just want to give themselves, or if you want to send in your form and then people in the gift processing office already have that information there when they scan the QR code. Brianna, thank you for that.
Yeah. No
we talked about this the other day. You haven't gotten all sexy like Tim with videos or any other sort of recipient uses. For the moment, this is just kind of an in-house efficiency for what you guys are doing at USC.
Exactly. Yeah, we are not sexy yet. No. But
yeah, sorry. Well, yeah.
No, we for the maybe in the next year we'll get that way.
There you go.
But for the donor, for their aspect, they just use a unique web code. So it's like a 10-digit web code. It's personalized to them. So then when they visit the giving link, their name and then their data populate. So that web code is unique to them. That's kind of where we are with that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring Christina in for a second just to talk for more than a second, to talk about the perspective from the business side of that conversation. I want you all to appreciate just how thorough my research has been into this topic. And you can find some how-to videos on YouTube if you want to play with creating your own personalized QR codes. So in the event you don't want to take on all of this hassle yourselves, good news, there are some people out there in business to save you. Maybe no one finer than the good folks at MCR and their whiteboard guru, Christina Nichols, who is joining me at my begging live from Cleveland, Ohio. Christina, how are you? Take the microphone off.
Here we go. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. This is a really interesting and timely topic. I think, like Tim, back in the day, I used QR codes, and then again, did not have the same sort of, feedback or experience that I think we were sending them to a homecoming registration page on an appeal. So let's talk about like how poor of a choice that was.
Yeah.
To action on something, but anyway, but they have come a long way, and you're right, Bob. It's because everything that we now hold in our hands can now do this, right? So it makes it so much easier, and they're a whole lot less scary. I think a lot of people kind of looked at them like, oh, what else do you know about me that's captured within those black dots? So now I think people are less scared of them. And so I have a couple of examples of how our clients are using these. And, whichever direct mail vendor you use, it's likely that they'd be able to help you with this. Here at MCR, we produce them for our clients if desired. Or we can provide whatever the client has already created. So if you provide the data in the spreadsheet, then we're able to produce them for you. And let you know what they are and test them out. So
can you just let me interrupt with just a quick question. I mean, we've looked at some examples already that are to facilitate kind of the internal processing and some that are more externally focused, I guess I would say. can you generalize at all how much of your work tends to be to facilitate processing gifts versus, the sexy stuff we were talking about?
I would say it depends, particularly for the larger institutions. We do a lot of work to make sure that their gift processing team is able to go through the bulk. And so what used to be a scannable barcode at the bottom of the appeals is now changing into a QR code. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that gifts are accepted by the institutions, and we work with our clients on a number of levels to do that. It depends upon how much the client needs us to help them with that. But yes, we've always been, we can do whatever it is that gift processing needs us to do in order to make sure that that information is there. So I would say we really see QR codes being used in 3 ways. I think one, like Tim used them in some sort of engagement piece where you're deepening the story. You're telling more about what's on the piece of paper and giving some more depth to it.
Sexy.
Yes, the sexy part. One part is to interact. So to give, to do something. We have a project right now that actually didn't use a QR code, but would have been absolutely perfect for it. It was a personalized URL survey that tied back to a database. So the client sent us their entire alumni database, and then we produced a personalized URL, which could have very easily become a QR code, sent out emails and a postcard and a letter. If you would think like that postcard and letter, the postcard kind of gave them the URL to, or just told them to check their email for the survey is what it was. And then the letter just had them fill out the form. Had they just put the QR code that sent them back to the website, what ended up happening is they got these paper forms back on the survey, and their gift entry people were having to, or their donor, I guess the donor record people were having to enter those in by hand. Had they just put a QR code, they could have taken them right to the online form. So then they got a 12% response rate without a QR code with that whole push. So I'd like to think that that's something that would have helped them along and maybe they'll do that next year. Anyway, so really to engage people, to interact with giving or updating information, and then the gift processing side. So this piece I had to get special permission from Virginia Tech to do. They just dropped this in the last month or so. It was their fiscal year end thank you. Do you have the second page of this one as well? So a couple of cool things about this. First, the director of annual giving had us create a font that is actually her handwriting. So if you know Heather Kopak at all, this is Heather's handwriting in font version. She was so excited about this. And it's personalized. So these are all written with our real pen machine. So it is an actual card from Heather, basically. But then we were able to put the QR code on there. And what you'll see with this QR code is that this is a really intricate QR code because there's a whole lot of information that's contained in that QR code. So the more data that you put into a QR code, the more complicated and large it also needs to be. So you think about it that way. But this is great. She has said she's gotten fantastic donor feedback already from it. People have said it's really easy to use and just complimented her on the piece altogether. This was a self-mailer, and it just folded in half. And there was another version that was a little bit more of like a typical mailer. But this nice self-mailer was easy to produce, and she's gotten really, really great feedback. So that's an example of that one. Bob, if you want to... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
This has to be the first example ever of a handwritten note with a personalized QR code.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So
that checks several boxes there, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So the other one was Ohio State, right? And isn't that similar to what Brianna was talking about at UIC? I don't have a picture of that, but tell me. Tell me along the same lines, and probably not unlike a lot of the work you do with a lot of clients these days in terms of facilitating processing the gifts, right?
Exactly, Brianna, it's exactly what you said. So we plop a QR code on there that's provided by the client with all the information that they need on the gift processing side to make sure that the gift is properly attributed to the appeal, to the fund, or not the fund necessarily, but unless it is just a single fund ask, but to the donors and all of that. So yeah, so we have that as well. And I think the neat thing is that I think for some teams it might be intimidating to play around with QR codes, and to know that if you just send us a giving link, even if it's not personalized, or maybe it's personalized to a fund, whatever it is, this is just a place where anytime you put a web address in your letter of please make your gift here, then that can become a QR code and be placed on your letter. So
I scanned Heather's QR code, and I got the Virginia Tech giving page, and it wouldn't be pre-populated with any of my data, but just, you said there's a lot of data that is going into those QR codes. So, and this is a renewal note that she's handwriting to people. So would that be pre-populated with somebody's last gift, maybe suggesting a next gift?
It depends upon how much information you want to provide. I think you have to be really careful just with donor data. You would not want this to be something that is just on a postcard where somebody in the mail could scan it.
Or somebody like me, right? Yeah.
Right. Way to go. Thanks so much.
No, it's not popular. It's not populated. Don't get John Taylor wound up.
I kind of started sitting there for a minute, like, oh. But yeah, so that's definitely something that could be populated or driven to a form that's already populated for them to continue filling out. So
it's good getting the perspective from your corner, because I think the survey link idea is really smart. And again, you could put person-specific information, to know exactly who was filling out the survey and what Bob Burdenski's opinions were about things. I love this Virginia Tech idea as sort of expediting a renewal gift from somebody. Between you guys and Brianna, I think I see both sides of the relationship about how you can use QR codes to facilitate and streamline sort of internal processes and just make sure we've got the right person and not having to do all that duplicate data entry. Christina, anything else that you're seeing coming over the horizon? I feel like we're getting to a critical mass with QR codes that nothing would surprise me with people's creativity going forward, including our friends at ThankView. If they haven't thought about doing a QR code with a personalized video, that's got to be just a matter of time before JD comes up with that one.
Yeah. So I think the only other thing I have seen, and it's not necessarily a QR code, and Bob, I think this was at Meeting of the Minds a couple of years ago, where you could scan like an entire image of like a magazine page, and it would pull up these interactive pieces. It was really fascinating. So kind of like a QR code on steroids, but it was within the image if you scanned it. That seemed to sort of die. I saw it in a couple of like United magazines after that, but then it died. So
and again, I'm going to oversimplify this, what Christina and Brianna both said, that I now see service providers, companies like MCR. I see some institutions with the internal capability to sort of stitch together how you get the data in the right coding format to then mass produce a bunch of QR codes and then merge those with other person-specific data into mailings or whatever. So there's a couple of ways to get at that that didn't exist when Tim and I were both thinking about this 10 years ago. So I'm trying to just sort of make the point. You can do things like Tim did 9 years ago and steer everybody to the same content. You can now increasingly steer people to content specific to them, whether it's a pre-populated giving form or it's their own personal thank you video. And there's a lot of different ways to solve that riddle, depending on what you want to do with a QR code. Christina, thanks. I reserve the right to drag you back into this chat, but appreciate that. Somebody asked in the questions, we're thinking about doing a QR code t-shirt. Is there any sense to that? My opinion would be, and anybody else can chime in if they want, in location-specific situations. So I can imagine a reunion tent with a bunch of staff people walking around, and that with a QR code like that that says "Be counted" or something. While you're holding your beer, you can take out your smartphone and make a reunion gift without even having to get up out of your chair. So that's my opinion of another way to appreciate QR codes in location-specific situations. I've seen a school that put QR codes on the sidewalk banners that hang along the sidewalk during their reunion weekend, and invited people to scan the QR code off the street banners to make a gift. You could certainly do that with T-shirts. I could see it at check-in desks at places. You know, again, at the moment, we're kind of out of location-specific events, but I could really imagine this getting critical mass when we get back to them a little bit more. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. If any of you have done this in location-specific ways, let me know. Adrian Penny says, be careful where you put the QR code on the shirt. We saw one once that was in an awkward place for women. If you catch my drift, put it on the back of the shirt would have been better. There you go. Point well taken. Not something that would have occurred to me, but there you go. Thank you, Adrian. Let's see. I guess I'm, this is my last slide already? Okay, yeah, because there I'm teasing John again. Let me go into questions, and let me remind everybody, use the chat if you have something you want to ask about. The question about remote payments we talked about, QR codes on the back of the T-shirts. Has anyone created personal QR codes? That's exactly what Christina and Brianna were both just talking about, and there are lots of variations on that theme. Like I said, I mean, there's the one from Virginia Tech that has pre-populated your prior gift information. DePaul here in Chicago, I think, did phone-a-thon reminder mailings that had the amount of your phone-a-thon pledge already pre-populated into the code. Hey, here's one for my team that's all still listening in. I've been wanting to use QR codes for a while, but our university communications won't allow it. How can I convince them? So let's see, it's Jessica from Whitworth. Jessica, if you're listening in, could you plead your case a little bit? I'm curious if that's seen as some kind of branding violation or the misperception that it's some kind of PCI compliance violation. You know, certainly style guidelines are the domain of the communications office, but I guess I'm a little surprised now, appreciating all the functionality that I think we can now accomplish with a QR code, that to be so arbitrary about it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Christina, have you been part of any discussions where there was actually some institution pushback about, oh no, we don't want that QR code on there?
I haven't heard of anybody saying no, not put the QR code on. I think the hardest part is, or the place where sometimes they get hung up is adding that personalized information. Unless your data, like wherever the data is stored, sort of needs to be able to feed into that website. Just think about it. Anytime it's just a personalized URL. So if you like, the more personalized you want it, except for on the gift entry side of things. And so all of the data needs to be available to create those things. And sometimes that becomes a stumbling block or takes more time, I think, than people expect. And so if this is something you want to try with your September, October mailing, probably a little too late to do that. If you want to try it with your calendar year-end mailing, then you probably have some time to put that together and test it out. So
okay, and
small, so
Aaron Allen in Iowa is reminding me you can put a logo in the middle of a QR code too. So for anybody who is just put off by the unattractiveness of a QR code, there's maybe a third way. Put your institution logo in the middle of a QR code. There's some of this chatter going on right now about needing a QR code reader, and I think one of the reasons this becomes a tipping point is because it's more built in now to a lot of phones going forward. Joel is asking how much of the population uses QR codes on a regular basis. Joel, I don't have that data, and I suspect the answer is that it's still not a majority of people at all. But if you go back to my point that now that there's more familiarity with it, now that it's easier to use a QR code reader because it's built into the phone, because of the touchless society that is causing us to use QR codes in other ways and increase people's familiarity with them in general. You know, I don't know the day that it becomes the majority, but my instinct is that it's got enough traction to it, in the same way we started using texting and some other tools of our trade. I just think the time has come. And remember, what got me started on this very discussion was in looking through fundraising samples from a bunch of institutions and starting to see QR code, QR code, QR code, QR code, that lead me to believe that people have reached a tipping point with this being something to think about, whether they're trying to streamline their gift processing or they're trying to add extra content to the things that they're sending out to folks. I just think it's a worthwhile time. Anybody else have something to say about that? Tim, what's your sense? Man, you were 9 years ahead of your time. I think you were QR code user #1. Do you feel like now you've got a better case to be made about how the population has caught up to us, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I love the information that's presented with, you know, the personalized QR codes. I mean, I'd really like us to see, I'd like us to take that step here in the future as well.
Yeah. How do you create a QR code? There are any number of free online websites. Type in QR code generator and pick one. and each offers different bells and whistles. One, Tim ought to know, QR code creator, I think it's called, actually gives you the additional add-on to track the data for your QR code in a way that would have solved some of your problems 9 years ago. Who's clicking on things? Meg Weber, Meg Ackerson, right, Christina, who was at Colorado State and now is with RNL. She taught me this about the usefulness of a bit.ly code to help you with understanding who's clicked on what and who, what kind of hit rates you have to things. You could always set up the destination of your QR code with a bit.ly URL, and that opens up a whole new ability to track who actually clicks on things in a way that we couldn't before. And I've also seen places that just create whatever content you're sending people to. Either it's not publicly visible. The only way you could have watched that video from Chris with the trumpet is because you clicked on the QR code, right, Tim? And then you could track, you know, of all the hits that came to that video, they all must have been because somebody clicked on the QR code. Let's see, I'm almost right at the top of my hour. Some of these are a little too technical for me. What is the ideal size of a QR code printed on paper? Can there be a design in the center? Yes, there can. And some of those QR code generators that we talked about offer that functionality. Christina, can you provide logos in the middle of your QR codes?
Yeah, we can. Yep.
As my preferred vendor, do you have any recommendations for the size of a QR code?
I think it really comes down to how much information you want stored in it. So
very clever. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, is that really true? It just depends on form follows function. How big the QR code is dictates what you can put in it.
I would say, yeah. I mean, how small it is dictates how much you want in it. If you want it to be smaller, I think honestly, the bigger the better. I think what Heather did here is great. It's sizable enough where people are going to notice it. She tells them what to do with it. I think that's the other thing is, and say, hey, do this if you want to, or here's your other option, and to provide that kind of, I guess we could call it the low tech version of offering a URL. So would be just make sure you're giving your donors options that keep them comfortable. So
yeah. There's a lot of good comments in the chat. So as always, I will refer people to those. Hannah's given me a thumbs up for using bit.ly to track who clicks on what. Tim, I hope you're feeling gratified that your time has come, my friend. It only took 9 years, but we got there. 9 years. But I hope you can make another run at this, because finally we've equipped ourselves to show what a good thing this is, in my opinion.
Most definitely.
if you do something with the QR code, by all means, send it my way. I'd love to brag on your behalf for whatever creative use you come up with. One more plug for the PNW Engage conference. It occurs to me Christina will be there, probably chock full of holiday QR code examples. So come and join us for our fun with that. Brianna, thank you very much for letting me drag you into this conversation with the UIC perspective. You and Meredith and the team over there are always doing creative stuff. So thanks very much for that.
Of course. Okay.
Respecting everybody's time, but thank you for tuning in. If nothing else, I always ramp up my knowledge of these things having this chat. I'll share the link to the recording, and I'll share the printout of the chat, and hope you'll consider joining in the next issue we decide to tackle. Good luck with everything out there. Please stay safe, and please keep your chin up with everything that we have to do with. But hope to see you next time. Thanks, everybody.